Airbnb has suffered a big blow here in New York. The city council says the company now has to share the details of who's offering their homes or face a fine. It's an attempt to crack down on short-term rentals, which technically are already illegal in New York. Many homes are listed on Airbnb regardless. Now the city hopes these new rules will make it tougher for Airbnb and its hosts to get away with it. The business travel group Carlson Wagonlit is about to release its global travel forecast for 2019, predicting where hotel and flight costs are going next year. Kurt Ekert is the CEO and is joining us live on set. Great to see you, Kurt. Busy travel part of the year, right? The summer, people going on a lot of vacations while school is out. Tell us some of the biggest trends you're seeing.
So what we're seeing, the biggest thing that's happening within travel generally, especially in business travel, is that consumer-grade expectations have filtered into business travel. So normally, with business travel, obviously, this is for commerce, procurement's involved, the safety and security of the traveler is important, but the expectation of the traveler in terms of shopping and booking through an e-commerce site and what they experience in transit, they expect now from their business travel providers.
And when it comes to hotels and other accommodations, what are we seeing along the horizon there?
Well, development in hotel property development has been massive, especially in the emerging markets around the world. We're seeing price increases between 3% and 4% globally, and the rise of alternative accommodation providers such as Airbnb is clearly creating conflict and opportunity for the space.
And yet we continue to see headwinds, maybe not so much in the U.S., but definitely in Europe, many of it Brexit triggered. Right. How is that impacting business travel decisions with so much unknown right now?
So overall, business travel is a $1.3 trillion sector. It's growing at an annual rate of about 4%, and that's consistent over a long period of time. So it's a very healthy, high-growth sector. There are certainly uncertainties with geopolitical tensions, what may happen with Brexit, and anywhere that there are trade restrictions or travel restrictions put in place, that creates friction. That can be negative for GDP and certainly negative for business travel as well.
And yet it doesn't seem to be another hurdle that we've seen, you know, every cycle or so. I mean, these are uncharted waters that we're going to be entering with Brexit, with these trade wars that we haven't seen in decades. How do you anticipate what the consequences may be, since there's not much to peg it against?
Right. I think if you look at it on a macro level, as long as there's strong global GDP growth, there'll be strong travel growth. What may happen is that the travel patterns may change within a region. For example, if Brexit were to go forward and there were trade or travel restrictions that were a consequence, we could see commerce shift to continental Europe away from the UK, for example, and so that would have a chilling effect perhaps on the UK economy. And so we tend to operate pretty much in sync with GDP growth around the world.
Let's talk about disruptors like Airbnb. It's been on the up and up and up for years now. Now we see regulators stepping in place. Airbnb is probably not going to be the first disruptor that we're going to see regulators focus on. What else do you anticipate regulators stepping in, and what impact does that have on the industry?
Right. Well, the sharing economy has been huge, whether it is ground transport or accommodation. Those are the two principal places. And that choice and the transparency for the traveler, I think, is a positive. When you speak about business travel, the safety and security of the traveler becomes tantamount, whether it's that ground transportation or the accommodation provider. I think what's going to be very interesting for the ground industry especially is driverless cars. Mm-hmm. And that's something, even if the technology is there and commercially we have an appetite for that, the question is, will regulators have an appetite? So that's going to be huge in terms of the impact to our industry.
And you have companies that span internationally get regulators that impose their own rules geographically as well. How does that balance out? We have regulators in the U.S. focused on many different aspects and regulating differently than, let's say, regulators in Europe do.
Well, a great example is GDPR, which are the new European data protection regulations. We're fully compliant with those. Those just came into being in May. It is our expectation that over time, that becomes the norm or the standard that's adopted by other governments. So what we tend to see is that inconsistency, but over time, you sort of have to drift up to the highest standard.
Great to have you on. Thank you. So fascinating to think about the future of travel and accommodations, technology, all of it, and how it's all going to impact consumers.
Thank you,
Good
Bianna.
to see you. Thank you. Well, the CEO of Qatar Airways says he's ready to ride out the cost of the boycott against Qatar. Akbar al-Bakr sat down with Richard in one of the airline's brand new business class suites at the